My name is Charlie, and I would like to say that I'm a professional norm breaker. This wasn't something that I chose to become. It's simply seen all my life that who I was and what I wanted to do was never within society's framework of what was deemed acceptable. And for me, this became the most clear when I, as a teenager, came out as transgender. But before we dive into that, I think, just so we're on the same page, I'll define what I mean when I say norms. Okay, so a norm is a social rule that gives you clues on how to act within a given situation. And norms like that, they make sense. They tell us that that crazy story of what happened last week at the bar, that's not something you tell your new coworker. When you meet your boss, you go in for a handshake, not a kiss. And when you give a TED Talk, you wear your nice jeans without the rips and tears in them. These aren't rules you'll find written down anywhere. Norms are usually unspoken, and you find them, you sort of don't fully realize them until you accidentally break them. And then given how the people around you react, you realize, okay, how am I supposed to be? So norms are sort of like the white lines on the soccer field. They show us the playroom that we have on what is acceptable behavior. But with these norms then come the question, okay, here are the lines. What happens if I am to cross them? What if I don't play along by the rules? What are the consequences of being a norm breaker? Now, when I was 16, I was having some major issues with myself, and those issues came from me, like everyone else, being brought up in accordance to some of society's strongest norms, some that are integrated into us our entire lives that we seldom even seem to realize that they're there, the gender norms that we have. Now, if I were to ask you, how many genders are there? The most common answer would be 2, right? There are boys and there are girls. All right, but then how do you know if someone's a boy or a girl? Well, that's easy. You look at them and you know. And this is what I was taught. When I was born, the doctors looked at me and they said to my parents, congratulations, we looked at your child, we looked between their legs, and you have a girl. Good for you. Now take her home. And that was really the beginning of it, because our gender isn't only determined by our genitalia. We are brought up since birth. We are groomed into behaving in different ways. The same action can have very different reactions. For instance, if a young boy at the playground was to push a girl around and pull her hair and call her mean things, a surprising amount of parents seem willing to forgive this because he likes her. When I was 6, I got into a lot of fights with my male classmates, and one time I punched a boy in the face. My parents were not pleased. Me saying that I liked him did not help my case. I was behaving the same way the boys were, but since I had been told that I was a girl, my action got a very different reaction. And it kept on going like this. I was told, I was groomed, I was told that my actions, I couldn't act the way the boys were because I was not a boy. I was a girl, I should learn how to act like one. So when I, at age 16, realized that I, in fact, was not a girl, I was terrified. I already knew the consequences of being a norm breaker. When I was younger, all the other children would always be very social. They would play soccer together, and they would have play dates, and they would have sleepovers. And I liked to sit in solitude with my books and read. That was what I wanted to do. And by the time we turned 11, the other kids had decided that that social exclusion was no longer enough because I didn't seem to react to it. I wasn't really bothered by never being invited and always being picked last at sports. No, at age 11, I was to be actively punished for daring to be different. So some boys took to throwing rocks at me at school, so I would realize that I couldn't behave differently. That was not to be tolerated. I got bullied simply for acting different. If I were to come out as transgender, come out as being fundamentally different, what would the repercussions be? How would people react? I would have to put myself on the line every time. I would have to come out as being different. I would make other people uncomfortable. I would maybe put myself in harm's way. The statistics of assault and homicide against transgenders were not in my favor. So at age 16, realizing I was transgender, I took a page from the Book of Mormon musical and I turned it off. I repressed. The problem, I told myself, wasn't that I was transgender, it was that I simply hadn't been feminine enough. And if I committed myself to making myself the girliest girl the world had ever seen, I would be fine. So that's what I did. I took to standing with my toes and knees together. I put my hands together. I would tilt my head and I would giggle and smile. I'd have long eyelashes and lots of makeup. I'd have long curly hair. I wore the prettiest dresses with the poofiest skirts, and I was just the prettiest little thing. At age 17, after having lived through one of the worst years of my life, I realized that I had come to a crossroads. The time had come for me to make a decision of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to live my life. The way I saw it now, the norms were sort of like the toy you have when you're a young child, with the holes and the shapes that you have to put through them. The way I saw it, being a woman and being feminine was a round hole, and I was a square shape. I could push myself through the hole. I knew I could. I'd been brought up as a girl. I knew how they were supposed to act. I knew what they were supposed to look like. But pushing myself through that hole would mean carving my edges off. Huge chunks of me would have to disappear. I would have to completely eradicate parts of who I was simply to fit into society's idea of being a girl. Or I could do something much more difficult. I could pick up a figurative saw and I could make my own hole. And that would be a much bigger challenge in many ways. I would have to constantly challenge the norms of how genders are and what they're supposed to act like. I would have to go into every new situation, coming out of the closet again and again and again. I would make a lot of people feel uncomfortable. I would make a lot of people feel awkward. I would be misunderstood, and I would feel so strange. But I would do all of this as me. I would have a chance to fully be myself and live my life the way I wanted to. And call me selfish, but at the age of 17, I wasn't ready to destroy my own personality in order to please everyone else in the room. So I picked up my proverbial saw and I came out as a non-binary transgender. When I tell people that I'm non-binary, the most common response I get is, "What?" This isn't something that we've been taught even exists. We've been taught that there's boy and there's girl and that's it. I've been told that you're just confused, Charlie. There are only two genders, Charlie. My doctors disagree with that, by the way. Both my surgeons and my psychologists. So, medicine is on my side in this case, making that clear. But society still has this very strong idea of boys and girls and how they should act and how they should behave. So when I tell people that I'm non-binary, they can't wrap their head around the concept. This doesn't fit in with their worldview. And since I don't look like a girl, since I don't look like a boy, they say, okay, Charlie's a girl, a strange girl, but a girl nonetheless. Which means that when I don't act as a girl, things get very strange. Because when I came out, I said, all right, I will stop following gender norms just because I've been taught I'm supposed to. I will act polite because that's good. But if I think the male way of doing it looks more fun, I will do it that way. I will be who I am. I will not follow the female norms because that makes everyone else sound more pleased. I will be me for me. I will not be anyone else for anyone else. So that's what I did. I looked at my brothers and the way they talked about themselves, and I would mimic that. I stopped downplaying myself constantly, and instead I raised myself up to the skies. Yes, I am the best. Yes, you are in fact lucky that I am here tonight. You better hold on to your hats because I'm about to blow your minds. I stopped laughing at jokes that made me uncomfortable because it would keep the conversation light. If someone told me a story where the punchline was a racist joke, I stopped giggling uncomfortably behind my hand. Instead, I would take a step forward, cross my arms, raise my chin, and say, "Why should I laugh at your prejudice?" If I was in a conversation with someone who just kept on talking about themselves in a sort of way to lift their own ego, I wouldn't keep on asking questions because that was the polite thing to do. My goal of a conversation shifted from being keep it going to keep it equal. If I give you my attention, I also have the right to take your attention. A conversation is supposed to be with someone, not at someone. And this has caused friction because people don't understand what I am doing is still considered polite, but it's not considered polite for a girl to do. So when I do it, I'm called a bitch quite often. I've been told that I was not raised right. Because this questioning of gender norms, it comes in so late into our lives that once it happens, it's usually too late for us to fully grasp it. I'm a climbing instructor for 12 years old, okay? And when I, a few weeks ago, mentioned something about transgender issues, they looked at me with blank faces and said, "What does that mean?" At age 12, how many years of media have we already been exposed to? How many books have we read? How many movies have we watched? How many interactions have we had with other people? And they had never even heard of a transgender person and what that meant. If we are from birth until age 18 brought up to think there are boys and girls and they are different and they act different, and then at age 18 we're told, or you know, whatever, you can be whichever you want, or something else, that's cool, I guess. Then what does that really mean? People won't understand that. You can't wrap your head around an entirely new concept when you've been told something else since birth. And I think that this became really clear in a particular situation here at this school. Okay, so when I started here, I was already out and open as non-binary. And for me, being non-binary means that my gender identity is not on the male-female spectrum. I am completely devoid of gender. I'm totally androgynous. I have moved beyond it. So I'm not male, I'm not female, I'm just nothing. And I told my friends this, and they said that they understood. But when I was also elected as one of the school ambassadors. And so were my friends. And those friends said that they understood what I meant when I said that I was non-binary. But when the school was going to have an all-girls inspirational evening, there were still 4 of them who asked if I was going to be there. They didn't even seem to understand how hurtful that question was, how it made my throat tighten and my eyes prickle. Since I was 16, I've had the issue that people refuse to stop seeing me as a female, and you ask if I am going to be at an all-girls event. That very question is offensive. I am not a girl. I do not belong at an all-girls event. I have as little business there as the next male ambassador. I am not a girl. Stop treating me as one. And I think it's important that we as a society look at these norms and bring them up to question and really evaluate what they do to us. I'm not saying we need to get rid of them. I'm not advocating a completely genderless society where everyone looks and acts the same, because not everyone is the same. But we need a society where you can be different, and that is okay. A young girl should be allowed to talk about herself and her interests. Let her finish. She probably has a great point to make. If a boy wants to take the backseat of a conversation and only ask questions, fantastic. Maybe his idea of sharing is by learning and listening rather than being the one who always talks. If a child goes up to their parent and says, I want to use only gender-neutral pronouns and also cut my hair and also wear a dress, splendid. Let them. Give people freedom to be themselves and express themselves the way they want. Be open to people breaking the norms. Teach them from a young age that that's okay. The norms they're constructed by us. We have the power to change them. And the end of the world won't happen if we break them. The line is here. I can simply cross it. There was no lightning. The world kept on turning. Because by being open to people being different, we can really start understanding differentness. By being open, with being open comes understanding. And with understanding comes acceptance. And in that way, maybe the next time I tell someone, "Hi, I'm Charlie, nice to meet you, I'm non-binary," their response won't be half a raised eyebrow and right, okay. Maybe the response will simply be, "Ah, cool, I haven't met one before. Could you please tell me more because I want to learn and I want to understand." Thank you.